What is the juiciest revenge you've gotten on a cheating husband? I discovered my husband was cheating by finding a second phone hidden in his car, so I used it to destroy his entire life from the inside out. Mark and I had been married for 8 years. He was a successful real estate agent, I was a teacher, and we seemed like the perfect suburban couple. Everyone admired our marriage, our beautiful house, and our seemingly stable life together. But Mark had been acting strange for months, working late constantly, being secretive with his phone, and becoming distant in ways I couldn't explain. When I tried to talk to him about it, he'd dismiss my concerns and say I was being paranoid. One Saturday, I was cleaning his car and found a phone wedged under his seat. It wasn't his usual phone. This was a cheap burner with dozens of messages from someone named Ashley. The messages were explicit, romantic, and had been going on for over 6 months, but that was just the beginning of discovering Mark's double life. I didn't confront him immediately. Instead, I kept the phone and started monitoring his conversations with Ashley. She was a 26-year-old client he'd met while selling her a condo. Mark had been telling her he was divorced and planning to marry her. The messages revealed Mark had been using our joint savings account to pay for expensive dinners, hotels, and jewelry for Ashley. He'd spent over $30,000 of our money on his affair while telling me we needed to budget more carefully. Even worse, Mark had been showing Ashley houses using my name as a fake reference for financing. He'd forged my signature on documents and used my credit score to help her qualify for loans I knew nothing about. I realized Mark wasn't just cheating. He was committing financial fraud using my identity. What I did next was perfectly calculated revenge. I started responding to Ashley's messages, pretending to be Mark. I told her I was ready to leave my wife and wanted to surprise her with a public proposal. I convinced her to plan a big celebration at the country club where Mark did most of his business networking. Meanwhile, I gathered evidence of every financial crime Mark had committed. Bank statements, forged documents, credit reports showing fraudulent activity. I contacted a divorce lawyer and prepared to file papers. I also created a detailed presentation about Mark's illegal activities and affair, complete with screenshots, financial records, and a timeline of his deception. The night of Ashley's surprise proposal party, I showed up instead of Mark. Ashley had invited 50 people from the real estate community, including Mark's boss, his biggest clients, and several business partners. What happened next was the most satisfying moment of my life. I took the microphone and thanked everyone for coming to celebrate Mark's engagement. Then I began my presentation, explaining how Mark had been living a double life, committing fraud, and stealing from our marriage to fund his affair. I showed the forged documents with my signature, the bank statements proving he'd stolen our savings, and the messages where he'd lied to Ashley about being divorced. The room was dead silent as I methodically destroyed Mark's reputation in front of his entire professional network. Ashley started crying when she realized she'd been dating a married man who'd used her to commit crimes. Mark's boss was furious about the fraudulent paperwork and illegal use of company resources. By the time Mark arrived, thinking he was going to a romantic dinner, he walked into his own professional funeral. His boss fired him on the spot. 3 major clients canceled their contracts. Ashley dumped him publicly in front of everyone. But I wasn't finished. I handed divorce papers to Mark in front of the entire crowd, along with copies of all the evidence I'd gathered. I'd already reported the financial fraud to authorities, frozen our joint accounts, and secured our assets. The fraud charges resulted in Mark losing his real estate license permanently. He faced criminal charges for identity theft and forgery. Ashley sued him for emotional distress and fraud. Mark went from successful real estate agent to unemployed criminal in one evening. I kept our house, got half his retirement savings, and watched him move into a studio apartment while fighting multiple lawsuits. The best part? I used his own cheating phone to orchestrate his entire downfall.